Unfortunately, I can't physically join you there to discuss about the future of the circular economy and SmarChem solutions. But happily there's the possibilities to convey the message via digital means also. Circular economy is the buzzword of and resource efficiency of the today, and with a good reason. Because actually we are in a vicious circle where we have more people, more money, and that of course is very nice for you and me and for everybody else. But then when we have more goods, more gadgets, and the lifespan of the goods are shorter and shorter, this means that the resource consumption is increasing exponentially, and all the other harms and damages to ecosystem services like climate change, the loss of biodiversity, clean waters, microplastics, you name it, on the same end. And so actually what we need to do is we would need to change our economy from linear, one-use economy to circular economy, where basically there isn't such a thing as a waste. All materials basically are circulating in the closed loops in the society and industries. It is extremely important that we increase the durability and the usability of the goods, the ways and means and the times how we can use them. And before the recycling, actually the upgradability. Think of if I could upgrade this phone instead of buying a new one. The repairability, the possibility to modularity so that the parts can be used if not the whole equipment, and recyclability on the highest value and highest level of the material goods. So what that actually means is that you have 3 new guidelines or 4 guidelines for the economy. The first one is with 1/10 of the resources, because you need to set the bar right. You have to understand, we have to understand, that this is not a minor change what you can use with the tweaking of the systems or just thinning the table a bit. This is a paradigm shift. This is a major drastic change in our societies, where we would need to produce the same welfare and the same service for the end consumer, the same income or better income for the company, and the same income or higher income for the society with 1/10 of the resources. And there, as said, all the resources should be in the closed loops. The energy should be only coming from renewable sources. Basically, there shouldn't be any emissions, at least no harmful emissions, and you shouldn't harm the biodiversity with your actions, or you would need to compensate that. Think of, for example, the mining business, what kind of implications it would have if you would have this no harm principle, be it emissions or be it biodiversity, the land use, indirect land use. Okay, so you need to set the scale right. Then actually you can see that this paradigm shift is going to change the models of the economy. And what is interesting is that when you combine the big changes that are coming from the digitalization, these 2 elements together are going to create totally new kind of structures in our businesses. The first of them is that everything is going to be serviced and should be serviced what is possible. Some of the chemical companies have been already leasing the chemicals, because then you pay only for the waste, in quotes, that is the used amount of the chemical, and it comes cheaper to clean up the chemical and reproduce it than to do it from the point number one, from the virgin raw materials. There are already concepts how to lease houses, construction machinery, kitchen cupboards, floorings, and other services. And in the future, most probably, for example, transportation is going to be much more of the service. And nowadays it is about 90% of the time the car is unused and staying in one location. And so actually by that way you could create much more of efficiency. In energy market you can see the new concepts of prosumers. You can't actually differentiate that clearly anymore who is producer and consumer when a substantial amount of the energy is produced by small-scale renewable sources, the same ones that are actually using the energy. And actually I wouldn't mind that much if instead of paying for the energy, that would be a source of income to me in the future. Okay, what then? This needs a lot of thinking for the companies. It is a huge business possibility, but you would need to think on backcasting way, not linearly, how I would make this product of mine slightly and gradually better. Because actually it doesn't help you if you walk a bit faster if the direction is wrong. Good example or bad example of that is, of course, diesel motors, as we have learned in late years, and all that unhealthy competition and the unfair and unethical behavior that was related in quite a big part. So you would need to look closer and think, what are you using in the longer run as a fuel in transportation? You would need to concentrate on logistics, how much of the goods and in which way is going to be circulated around the world. And then, as said, how you put all the logistical capacity in effective use, how you design and plan your cities. Just to pick one example that there's a lot of possibilities, for example, in Finland, and I now pick plastics that are one of the biggest challenges in that sense that the production and consumption of the plastics is increasing steeply. We all know that in quite a number of the plastics there are endocrine disruptors. We know the problems of plastics in the seas and even more the microplastics that are in our air, in our soil and in our waters. So we can't fourfold, quadrufold the production and the use of the plastics as it is anticipated. We would need to cut down more than to a half of the consumption and production of the plastics that we are doing nowadays. Okay, what is the replacement? Replacement, like in many other parts, is bio-based materials that are non-toxic and reusable or biodegradable. Let me pick up single-use plastics and food packing as an example. There actually we have a huge problem, not only from the waste coming from the packing, but on the endocrine disruptors that are in substantial part of the materials. What you would need, and actually this is developed, is to use that kind of a bio-based, if necessary biodegradable, non-toxic material, and that includes the endocrine disruptors, that can be basically eaten by the consumer. It could be composted if necessary, if you are in remote areas, or it can be recycled and reused, as you know from the packing materials on paper and cardboard. But then again, even bigger one, and this is a big one, in microplastics and on the resource use, is the textiles. Because basically, well, with the synthetic materials we are using and wearing the plastics. And big part of that is ending to our waters and soils when we wash and wear the textiles. One of the best answers that has been developed so far is the use of wood fiber to produce textiles, and then to reproduce the fiber, the thread, the textile and the garment out of the old textiles. So this is a wonderful example what the closed loop circular economy actually is and what it can be. Totally recyclable garment fibers. And we are producing in Finland, for example, about 24 kilos textile waste if you calculate all together in Finland at the moment. Think of if all that could be replaced and reused by this kind of recyclable materials. So what that means is backcasting. You shouldn't look what you can do better with existing. You should see where you need to be, non-toxic, no emission, save biodiversity, with renewable energy, that kind of materials that can be reused in circular loops. And this by 2050. And the question is, and this is the backcasting question, how do I get there? Do I need to change the materials? How do we combine the public procurement so that it supports the change process? And what that actually demands on servicing of the economy. After these changes, life is certainly not going to be the worse. It's going to be the better and more prosperous. And you guys, you are the part of the solution. I would be happy to hear of your examples and results of your days and the innovations later on too.